Yes, thank you very much, Sean. And once again, a very big welcome to all of our attendees this morning, to all of you out there in SA and some of us listening in. I know I've got my phone over here for some of the guys over in the UK listening in. So we want to say thank you very much to all of our audience and our attendees, and how much we appreciate the involvement that you've had in these toolbox talks. So please continue, as Sean mentioned, giving us that feedback so that we know how to continue to improve these toolbox talks every Tuesday morning. We'd also like to say thank you very much to FEM and IOPSA for bringing us these toolbox talks, as well as SIOSH as an institute from Occupational Health and Safety, and what they are doing, also accrediting this with a CPD point, but not only that, everything else that they are doing in the industry to really bring up the standard of health and safety in South Africa. We really appreciate that, and all of you out there who are also constantly striving toward a better standard. So this morning's toolbox talk on electrical extension cables, you might have thought, well, this is a bit of a weird one. Why are we discussing this? Well, let's go through some of the information, and then through about halfway through this discussion, we're actually going to maybe ask you if you've experienced any of the things that we've discussing. And then we'd like, if possible, we're not going to have a question and answer session, but we'd like you to interact with us once again, get in touch with us via mail or WhatsApp, and let us know how you handle these different types of situations. And that is so that we can really see what is happening in the industry. Again, we always want statistics from SA. It's very important for us to be able to do that. And getting these statistics will help us to always improve on the quality of the information that we give you, and also relative information from South Africa. Oftentimes we are getting statistics from all over the place, but we really want to try and keep it local. So if possible, please constantly interact with us if you can. Now, portable electrical tools as such. Portable meaning easily carried or moved. Electrical, obviously operated by or producing electricity. And then tools, which is a device or an implement that is handheld and then also used to carry out a certain particular function. In other words, it's tools that are handheld, manually operated, and powered by electricity. Now, many of us are using portable electrical tools. What type of portable electrical tools, you might ask? Well, grinders, drills, even a vacuum cleaner for a site is defined as a portable electrical tool. Why is that? Well, it is easily moved or carried around. It is operated by electricity, and it is a device that is used to carry out a particular function. So anything that fits that category basically falls under portable electrical tools. And the danger here is that it is being used with electricity. Now, I don't need to tell you what the dangers of electricity are, but obviously we see the need to understand why we look at things like portable electrical tools and also extension cables. Now, an extension cable on its own, is it really a portable electrical tool? Well, let us see what an extension cable actually is. An extension cable, or a cord, a power extender or a drop cord, or even an extension lead as some call it, is just a length of flexible electrical power cable. It has a plug on one end, and then it has one or more sockets on the other end. Now, this is used to power a device. In other words, you plug it into the source of where the electricity is. It then carries the electricity from the source to the handheld tool or whatever thing it is that you are using that needs electricity. Because it is an extension cable, we can then say that it becomes an extension of the tool. So when we are inspecting the tool, if it has to be used with an extension cable, that extension cable becomes part of the tool. It becomes the extension of the actual cable. So does it fall under portable electrical tools? Well, certainly it does. On its own, it is not being used, but when it is connected to something, it becomes part of that tool. So many of us are out there in the field. We see the guys using drills, using grinders, and they're often inspecting it. And we want to congratulate many of the plumbers that we have seen on site, filling in their toolbox talks, filling in their registers and their checklists, and actually physically checking and inspecting their equipment. However, we have noticed that electrical extension cables generally are not being inspected. And the question came up was, what type of document do we use? Are we putting it on the electrical uh, portable electrical tool checklist, or is there another checklist? Well, we've actually designed and created an electrical extension cable checklist. So if you'd like that, please drop us a mail and we can definitely give you that template in order to start using it. But there's nothing wrong with putting it on any type of checklist as long as you are inspecting the right things on that electrical cable. But the question also arose while we were out in the field is, can it really be dangerous? Another person asked, do we really need a toolbox talk on electrical cables? Well, we know that they are electrical, so the danger there is a shock hazard or a fire hazard. But are they really dangerous? So let us take a look at a little bit of facts. Obviously, again, we have to go to other countries to get statistics because we don't have very good statistical analysis here in South Africa. And that's why we're hoping that we can get some feedback from you. And this is where we would really like to hear from each and every one of you. What experiences have you had with portable electrical cables? Now, from the US, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the CPSC, estimated that each year about 4,000 injuries associated with electrical extension cords are treated in hospital emergency rooms. Now, 4,000 injuries. This is not near misses. These are 4,000 injuries that are happening every single year. Well, if you'd like to know the actual fact on that per day, it is almost 11 people a day being injured because of an electrical extension cord. Now you might think, well, out of the millions of people, is that many? You know, percentage wise, it is so small. However, would you have that same feeling if you were part of that 4,000 people? Well, let us take a look at what type of injuries these people sustained. Half of the injuries involved fractures, lacerations, contusions, or sprains from people tripping over extension cords. So a lot of the times, these weren't even the people using the extension cords. They weren't the ones handling the tools. They were just walking by. Now, the CPSC also estimated that about 3,300 residential fires originated in extension cords each year, and this killed 50 people in a year. Now you might say again, well, statistically that's a very low number, but we often say in safety, one is too many. So 50 people dying due to damaged, overloaded, or short circuit extension cords, even the misuse of extension cords, just a piece of cable used to conduct electricity from the source to the tool. It also injured another 270 people. Again, we might say, well, these figures are very low, but then I ask you, what if you were part of those 50 people? What if you were part of the 270? Would you still feel that that's a low number? Or would you say one is too many? Well, all of us are going to come across a time where we are going to need to use a portable electrical tool on an extension cable. Many of us are using extension cables at home. But where does the safety start? Is it at home? Are we overloading the sockets at home? Are we ensuring that they are safe to use? Do we inspect our electrical cables at home? Or does safety only begin once we get to site? Remember, these 50 people who died were in residential fires, because we are a little bit more relaxed when we are at home. We chill out a bit, especially over a weekend like we've just had. Many of us had a bit of a party on Saturday and Sunday. So we are a lot more relaxed around the house. But the statistics show that the danger exists just as much as home as it does on a site. So all of us need to just appreciate why electrical cables needed a toolbox talk of its own. And this is because the figures in South Africa are not there at the moment in statistics for us to give you the actual facts and figures, but we know that in a first world country, if 50 people a year are dying in residential fires due to broken, damaged, or misused extension cables, it could be very similar in our own country. So here's a couple of do's and don'ts when it comes to electrical cables. All of us are going to use them at a time, so always use it only when necessary. And please only use it on a temporary basis. These are not permanent wiring cables. So we cannot use this cable as a permanent wire or permanent fixture. Do not remove the prongs of the electrical plug. Now, many times the plug is designed only for a 3-socket, and we have only a 2-socket at the office. So what do? Well, like MacGyver, we have a knife, a pair of tweezers, and a little bit of cable, and we decide to change it in order to fit the socket that we have. Well, the danger here is you might take out the grounding cord, and this can lead to other hazards. Do not use an adapter or extension cord to defeat a standard grounding device. So always only use a 3-pronged plug in 3-pronged outlets. Do not alter them. Use extension cords that are the correct size and the correct rating for the equipment you are using. And a very good idea is just to check the diameter, so the thickness of the cable, compared to the thickness of the cable of the tool or the machine that we are actually using it on. This should be similar or bigger than the actual cable. Now, the reason for this is it needs to pull the electricity. Longer cables obviously need to be bigger and bigger the longer you go. The reason for that is also to take the amount of electricity from the source to the tool in the correct method and the correct manner. Always only use cords that are rated for outdoors if you are working outdoors. Do not run cords into ceilings and through walls as if they are permanent cabling. It cannot be used for this purpose. Keep electrical cords away from areas where they may be pinched or areas where they pose a tripping or fire hazard. This is extremely important for those working in and around areas where others may be affected by the work that you are doing. As we saw, a lot of people were injured, over 4,000 people, because of tripping over electrical cables. Now, if this has ever happened to you and you were fortunate enough not to sustain any injuries, you can see the potential for very serious injuries when it comes to tripping over electrical cables. Then always inspect the cord prior to use. Now, again, we use this term prior to use and not daily, and that is because a daily routine can be any time of the day, before shift, during shift, or at the end of the shift. We like to use prior to use, and that is because before it is even in use, it needs to be inspected by the person using it. If it is in use twice a day, it is then inspected twice a day, because it is before we use it and not just daily. Never unplug an extension cord by pulling on the cord. Always pull on the plug, and then ensure that the plug socket is actually off before disconnecting it. Sometimes we might not do this and you don't get a shock, you don't have static, nothing happens, but it is only that one time that it could happen, and it could happen to any of us. Electricity is not something to be played with. It is extremely dangerous. Now, we've got a case study for you on someone that was using an electrical extension cable. It was used in the wrong manner, and this person unfortunately died. He got electrocuted. So we want to look at this case study. We just want to remind you that obviously this information, sometimes for sensitive people, they don't want to hear this information. So we do just have to warn you that it's not graphic information, but we are just going to explain what happened during this case study. So during the investigation, it was noted that the cord was missing its ground prong. So this extension cable was altered in order to ensure that they could use it on a particular site. So a worker used this extension cable that was missing a third prong from the electrical plug, and it resulted in the electrocution and death of that worker. He was climbing a ladder and he wanted to hand a power drill to another worker when he received the shock. So the investigations once again found that the extension cord was missing the ground prong. So the ground wire and the frame of the drill were being electrified off and by the energizing wire. And then the drill itself was also noted not to be double insulated. And this caused the person to be electrocuted, fall off the ladder, and sustain injuries that resulted in his death. Now, we might say, well, this is worst case scenario, but we have to understand that this is the possibility all the time when working with electrical extension cables. And that is because we are neglecting to inspect and check these cables along with the tools that we are using them on. So perhaps you might ask yourself at this stage, do we really need toolbox talks on topics such as electrical cables? What type of investigations have you done into incidents and accidents that resulted from poor maintenance, incorrect use of, or damaged electrical cables? So in the interest of getting some statistics out of you out in the industry, we'd like to ask, please, and everything will be kept confidential and no names or anything like that will be given out, but please use the email on the next slide just to drop me an email, send me through some information, or even on the WhatsApp group, and just give me some information of what's happened out there in the industry and how are you ensuring that electrical cables are kept safe. Maybe you might be like John, who I spoke to last week, who actually taught me how to roll an electrical extension cable. Now, I've been taught a lot of different methods, but the way he used it was extremely important because I could see how it wasn't getting warm, it wasn't being worn out too much, and it also wasn't creating heat while it was being used. So a brilliant technique of actually rolling up and storing his electrical extension cable. So maybe you have some safety tips or some do's and don'ts, and we'd love to hear from you out there in the industry. So once again, we'd like to say thank you very much for listening in. We just want to give you small amounts of information, things to think about, and always it comes from you, the listeners, that you're always asking us these questions, and we'd love to tailor make our toolbox talks really in the interest of you out there. So once again, thank you very much to all of our members, IOPSA members, SIOSH members, as well as our FEM members, and for any else or anybody else that actually tunes in to these weekly toolbox talks. Now, again, we just want to remind you, FEM and IOPSA have approved the following 2 courses for the year of 2019. We have our 2 last courses coming up for the year next week down in Western Cape, and then finally December 3rd and 4th will be the last Gauteng training course coming up. Remember, it's 2 courses. You can send 2 employees free of charge if you are an FEM or IOPSA member. Get in touch with us on chris@ohss.co.za, safety@iopsa.org, info@ohss.co.za, or that WhatsApp line anytime, 0718752070. You need the help, you have the assistance. So please let us know what we can do for you. Then next week on the 12th of November, we are going to have our how-to session. I know this normally comes up at the beginning of the month, but due to the public holiday we just encountered a few weeks ago, we've moved this how-to section, and that is pre-task evaluation. Again, on the how-to section, we will give you some templates on what a pre-task evaluation is, how we go about doing it, and then seeing if you can give us some feedback on how you're doing it and what has benefited you, what is working for you out there, and help us to learn a little bit more of what we can do to improve our pre-task evaluations as well. So thank you very much once again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you all next week, tuning in at 12th of November, 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. And don't forget the Zulu Toolbox talks every Monday at 7 a.m. as well. Thank you very much. We'll hand it over back to you, Sean.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Chris. Guys, there are no questions for this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and end the session off. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.